All right, we mentioned one of the wrecks that we had in the race in the previous topic. We briefly went over it, but we had a very hard crash with Christopher Bell and Chase Elliott, and luckily both of them just hopped out of their cars immediately. But we had a very hard crash into 3 and 4. They had to red flag the race to repair the wall. I don't know if they had a replacement wall. It seemed like they didn't. So that's why they did that. In my opinion, I think that luckily nobody hit it again. In my opinion, if somebody hit it again, that could have gone really bad. I thought that was a very dumb move on NASCAR's part. I understand them doing it. They probably didn't have a replacement wall, which would mean they would either end the race right there or they would make the race for tomorrow because they're not able to repair the wall they wanted to, per se. So I understand it, but if another driver crashed in even close to that fashion into that exact same spot, I think that could have been really bad. I think that could have been really, really bad. But luckily nobody else crashed into that spot, so it ended up being okay. But one driver that wasn't okay was Christopher Bell. He did get out of the car pretty quickly. He didn't even seem to be moving gingerly. It was probably just the heat of the moment sort of thing. He didn't feel anything at that moment. But he ended up fracturing his left wrist in the accident. And before you even question, he is going to be racing this weekend. He has been confirmed and approved by doctors and Joe Gibbs Racing to race this upcoming weekend at Pocono. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. They're probably going to get some sort of specially made cast for him to race that number 20 car, very similar to what Martin Truex Jr. went through years ago, probably about 10 years ago at this point, maybe even more now, where Martin Truex had to get a little cast on his arm, especially made cast. That way he was able to race with a very similar issue. So I see something like that happening for Bell. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of driver on standby. Probably will be Brent Cruz, I would have to imagine, with him coming up through the ranks. But yeah, Christopher Bell does snap his left wrist. But luckily, that's all it was. That was a really bad crash. I think Bubba came over the radio and said that was the scariest crash he's ever seen. It was one of the scarier crashes I've seen. So much speed at Michigan, such a hard hit. But luckily, Bell and Elliott, for the most part, are okay. Bell obviously snapped his left wrist and probably has some sort of bruising, and I would assume Elliott has some sort of bruising. It was a very hard hit. Elliott even went over to Bell afterwards to pretty much say he's sorry because Elliott looked like to me Elliott was just losing the race car and just completely overcorrected it into Bell in probably the worst spot on the racetrack. Just a quick second decision ended up being a wrong decision on Elliott and a big mistake by Elliott. But Elliott was man enough to immediately walk over after the crash and apologize, so that is definitely appreciated. But I'll start with Tyler on this one. Tyler, how do we feel? That accident was freaking gnarly. That was a gnarly wreck. Luckily, everybody for the most part is okay. Bell is going to have to be a tough son of a bitch at Pocono for Pete's sake. Not a great track, Pocono, to have a broken left wrist, especially with that tunnel turn.
Definitely a horrible track to have a broken left wrist for sure, if you ask me. I mean, not good at all. That wreck was the snappiest, quickest, just I've ever seen. Like I don't think we've ever seen somebody just move so fast. And from what I was watching Chase's in-car camera. That was the first time that Chase had gotten really low like that. That was the first time that he'd experienced his car actually snapping loose. So like it was just crazy timing. Like, that whole thing was something I don't think anybody could recreate if you tried because of how it happened. And the way he hit that wall was just ow. Like, I've never seen the passenger side window explode out of somebody's car like that. Like, full piece just gone from pressure. Like, that is insane to watch.
Yeah, an insane hit for sure. And I saw that side window flying out and ended up cutting off part of Larson's antenna for Pete's sake. You know, that is just that's crazy. That was a gnarly wreck, but it also shows how great safety has come along when it comes to NASCAR with the stuff in the car. With obviously the next gen has became a lot safer. When it was initially released, the next gen I honestly did well for the most part with wrecks like this. It was kind of the lower impact wrecks, especially to the rear bumper where it was even worse. But luckily, this car has gotten better with safety, the insides of the car with Han's device, all that stuff, the safer barriers. Like, If that wreck happened 30 years ago, I don't think Christopher Bell would have lived. I don't even know if Elliott would have lived. They both might have went in one crash, to be honest with you. It's crazy how far safety has come. That says a lot, which is awesome. And yeah, just hard hit. I'm surprised they were able to keep on going after that. But Cory, how did we feel about this gnarly wreck we saw between Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott? What does it say about safety, and of course Christopher Bell's toughness?
It was vicious, man. That wreck is easily the hardest wreck I've ever seen live. I think I can't remember one I saw in the moment and I was just like, "Holy crap. I hope they're okay." Like it was vicious, gnarly, like you said. If we had the same safety standards as we did 30 years ago, I don't think either of them would be alive. And that with that wreck, I think NASCAR deserves huge props for being concerned about safety. I mean, I know this car hasn't really been the safest, but they've moved to this car for safety. And man, that wreck was insane. There's not really any better way to describe it. I'm just, as a NASCAR fan, doesn't matter who you're a fan of, that type of incident scares you. And the fact that both of them got out of the car as quick as they did was the biggest relief I think we've all had on Sunday. And the longest Man, I just can't really say anything other than that wreck was scary. Like, just looking back at it and seeing the in-car cameras and seeing how instant it went from racing to in the wall. And Bubba Wallace said it the best. Like, that's the scariest wreck I think we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I mean, there's only been so many like this is like obviously there's the ones where drivers get airborne and go into the fence and stuff, but just straight on like hitting a wall. Let me think. Like some of the hardest hits I've probably.
Also,
What's up?
keep in mind this isn't Talladega or Daytona. This is Michigan. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a fast track, but like you're going to compare it to Daytona and Talladega. That's how vicious of a wreck it was.
Yeah, it was a very vicious wreck. There's been a number of vicious wrecks I'd say over the years of somebody just like hitting the wall. Like one of the first ones that comes to mind is one that almost ended a career of a future 7-time champion, Jimmy Johnson at Watkins Glen. I'll always remember that, him going flying through the sand and going into the tire barriers, and luckily he just hopped right out of the car. Elliott Sadler of Pocono. I know Tyler remembers that one. Elliott Sadler at Pocono into the inside wall. Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson at Pocono in turn one. I remember those. Those are hard hits. Cody Ware at Chicago Street Course a couple years ago. That was a really hard hit. Blaney at Daytona like a year or two ago, or might have been Talladega when he had the Earnhardt type of wreck straight onto the wall. Kyle Busch with his broken legs. That's another one as well. You know, there's a lot of hard crashes we've seen, but it just says how far safety has come because that one that we saw on Sunday might have been harder than all of those. It's debatable. Like I'd say the Gordon one and the Sadler one are pretty high up there, but I think it's debatable as the hardest hit out of all of them. And all we had was a snapped left wrist, a fractured left wrist. I can't believe it. Luckily, everybody was okay. But let us know your thoughts in the comments about Christopher Bell's toughness. He will be racing, or at least attempting to race at Pocono this weekend. Maybe you'll have a standby driver by the name of Brent Cruz, maybe somebody else, who knows. But let us know your thoughts about Bell and the wreck as a whole. How do we feel about safety in NASCAR right now and that gnarly crash? And also, how do you feel about Elliott getting out of the car and pretty much making sure Bell's all right and to apologize to him after the race? I thought that was, you don't see that a lot. You don't see a driver immediately apologize for wrecking somebody. You usually see them try to jump around and be like, nah, it was an accident. Just kind of like jump around and not act like they really did anything wrong. So that was cool to see him just immediately be like, yeah, that was my bad. But let us know your thoughts in the comments.